Well, hello everyone. Welcome. Welcome. Well, this is Alignment. This is a series about goals, habits, systems, and identity, and how all of these things are shaped way before execution starts. Now, this is a series that will unfold over the next 4 weeks in 4 phases with 6 days of content each week. Each phase builds on the last because alignment isn't something you fix in one conversation. And in this conversation, we're starting with something foundational, the silent killers of success. These are hidden thinking patterns that quietly erode success long before habits break or goals fall apart. Because there are things that we tell ourselves that sound logical, reasonable, even responsible. I'll do it later. I have time. I'm just being realistic. Now's not the right time. But a lot of those aren't strategy. They're painkillers. They just numb the discomfort long enough so that we stay exactly where we are. Now, before we go any further, let me clarify something. I am not an expert. I am simply sharing what I've been learning over the past couple months, the questions I've been asking myself, the patterns I've been noticing, the frameworks I plan on using to better position myself for success in 2026. This series is a result of me intentionally educating myself, not to chase motivation, but to get understanding, to understand why progress breaks down. That was really a question I was asking myself these past couple months. Why did my progress break down? And what happens when my goals, habits, systems, and identity are all aligned? That's what I've been trying to figure out. And I want to share that process, which I'm still in, actually. But I think I've learned enough to start sharing. So I am not teaching from a pedestal. I am sharing from a process. All right. Now that that's clear, let's keep going. Now, why am I starting this series here? Why am I starting with thinking patterns instead of going straight into goal setting? Well, because that was the main problem for me last year. The main problem is that we cannot set good goals. We cannot achieve them if we don't reset the way we think. If your thinking is off, your goals will not survive. So you got to reset how you think before you start planning goals for yourself. The first videos I watched weren't about discipline or productivity. They were about why do people not follow through on what they say they're going to do, even when they want to? Why does progress stall? Why does motivation fade? And why is it that intelligent, capable, smart people stay stuck longer than they should? All of these things were me. When I say people, I'm talking about myself. So I watch content from Brian Tracy, Miles Monroe, Jim Rohn, read things from Napoleon Hill, and those were different voices, different lenses, different perspectives. But at the end of the day, they were all saying the same thing, which is the core insight from this video that I want you to write down. Success doesn't disappear suddenly. It quietly and slowly erodes through thinking patterns that we do not question or master. That's what I need you to get from this video. Let's keep going. See, most people don't fail loudly. They fail quietly in ways that make sense, in ways that we don't question in the moment. Things that seem normal. But when you look back and see how much it cost you, you realize that you were actually misaligned with what you were supposed to do and become. And these are what many thinkers call the silent killers of success. They don't announce themselves. They don't require your surrender. They strategically and quietly engineer it without your consent. Let that sink in. They quietly engineer it without your consent. See, what they quietly weaken is your discernment, your resistance, your urgency, your standards, and it takes its time. But you get there. You get to the point of surrender, and you don't even realize it. You don't even realize it, and you haven't even given your formal consent for it. That's how good they are. Silent killers of success. These bad boys. When I found out about them, I was so mad. See, they work quietly by letting you believe that you haven't chosen them, when over time, they're the ones shaping and making your decisions for you. And the thing about them is that they work because they each contain a grain of truth. All right, let's get into it. What am I talking about? Who are these silent killers? I'm getting excited because when I found out about this, I felt like my ignorance was so high. Anyways, let's get to it. So what do they look like? See, one of the things that became clear to me as I was studying this material is that people rarely choose failure. We don't choose to fail, but we make unconscious choices. We choose comfort. We delay. Familiarity. Does that sound familiar to you? I know. See what I did there? We choose these things not as a decision. I know everybody says you have a choice. You get the choice. You choose what you choose for yourself. Well, we do, but sometimes we choose by default, not by real choice, not consciously. And each one of these silent killers feel harmless in isolation. But when you look back and see how far they took you from the direction you were trying to go, you realize how impactful and dangerous they are. This idea came up again and again, especially with Miles Monroe and his emphasis on self-awareness. He made me realize that I didn't lose direction because I wanted to fail. I don't think any of us want to fail. None of us want to lose direction, but we do so by making unconscious decisions because we lack self-awareness. We rarely question ourselves and why we do the things that we do on a daily basis. So the first set of silent killers are lack of self-awareness, unconscious decisions, and a preference for comfort. These three. Bad. See, comfort doesn't feel wrong. And that's why it often leads to something else. Procrastination. Yep. You procrastinate because you choose comfort. We've procrastinated because we chose comfort. And it's not the obvious kind. It's not the avoidance. It's the procrastination that sounds reasonable. The kind that doesn't just say, I'll do it later. The kind that says, I'll do a little bit now, and I'll do the rest after I'm sure about this. The kind that says, I'm almost done, but I need time to run through this one more time. I'm almost done, but I need to revisit this. Some of us are professional procrastinators. We don't just say, oh, I know I got to do something, I'll just do it later. No, we overthink. We say, oh, I need to do it better. It's not completely ready. I have more time, so I'll take more time. These are things that I tell myself. I need to overthink. I need to think this through. I know how to do this, but I need more clarity and I need to do more research. See, it's not obvious. And the thing is, I don't even say overthink because I don't think I'm overthinking. For me, I'm just thinking it through, and I'm thinking it through so I know all the details so I can be responsible and make the right decision, which is not bad in itself. But when it's done repeatedly, you got to really ask yourself, is it fear or is it really me thinking it through? I realized that procrastination is not laziness. Procrastination is delayed execution dressed up as logic. See, it doesn't look like avoidance. It doesn't look like you're not trying to do something. It just means that you're delaying the execution of it. And sometimes you're not delaying the whole execution. Sometimes we're delaying the partial execution of that thing. So you were supposed to get something done 30 minutes ago. You knew it was going to take you 30 minutes, but you just decided that you had 30 minutes to spare. And now you push that whole assignment back by a whole week because those 30 minutes became an hour, and then it became a day. And now you're a whole week late. Yep, that's what happens with procrastination. Yes, that's procrastination. Yep, that's you putting off something that should be ready or should be done to later for reasons that only you can come up with. I've done it too. We all do it. But yes, procrastination has been one of the silent killers killing our success. See, Brian Tracy points out that intention without execution is cute, but it's not moving your life forward. It's not doing anything. It just makes delay feel justified. And the more delay is justified, the easier it is to repeat it. And then fear comes and sits underneath all of this. So you see, we got unconscious decisions, lack of self-awareness, comfort, procrastination, and then delay. And then fear comes and sits underneath all of this. You see how hard it is to attack fear when you got all of these things piled up on top of it? Yeah, that's why we got to deal with that before we deal with this. And the thing is, fear doesn't sit underneath all of this as panic. When we think of fear, we tend to think, okay, I'm fearful, I'm panicking. No, this kind of fear sits underneath all of this disguised as overthinking. When you're overthinking, you're actually fearful. That's what I got from this content. It was so good. Every time I'm overthinking now, I tell myself, you're not overthinking. You're afraid. What are you afraid of? And that's how I'm able to move forward. But yes, I am a big overthinker over here. And I'm not ashamed to say it, but we're addressing that in 2026. No more. Overthinking is fear in disguise. And it's not just overthinking, it's overthinking, indecision, waiting to feel comfortable before making a decision, wanting to feel completely ready before you take a step forward. All of that is grounded in fear, is disguised as fear. It's just forms of fear, just showing up as different things for you to think it's not fear, but it's fear. When you think about it and you sit down and ask yourself, why did I overthink this decision? A lot of times, and I would say most of the times, because I made that assessment for myself, it's linked to fear. Playing it safe, waiting to feel confident, calling hesitation being responsible. All of that is overthinking. And a lot of it is grounded in fear. And this is what these people taught me. I am an overthinker, but I've always justified it because I feel that thinking things through, see, I don't even call it overthinking. I call it thinking things through to the most minute details is important because that's how you know what you're dealing with. But in reality, a lot of it is grounded in fear. And that has to be uprooted for you to move forward and to be successful. Because the reason why we overthink a lot of times is because we don't want to be wrong. We don't want to make the wrong decision and then pay the cost or pay the price of being unprepared or having made the wrong decision. But there's a point where overthinking actually costs you more than if you were actually wrong. That hit me like, oof, because I'm guilty of that. So silent killer number, I think 6 is fear, disguised as overthinking, being cautious, and playing it safe. And something that really stood out to me is I was watching a video by Jim Rohn, and he said something like, overthinking feels safe until it costs more than being wrong. Basically, you could have did the thing and been wrong, and you would have been better off than overthinking the thing and not doing it. Basically, that's what he's saying. So yeah. And he says, fear rarely tells you don't do it. It just says, not yet. And the thing is, as Christians, we tend to say that. We tend to say God's no isn't a no, it's a not yet. But sometimes that not yet is just indecision on your part. That not yet is overthinking on your part. So I had to repent for that, because there's a lot of times I said, oh, God said not yet. But actually God was saying, no, you're the one thinking not yet. I said, go ahead. So yeah. And when not yet becomes a habit, inconsistent actions follow because you care. So you start, but then you start and you doubt yourself, or you fear, and then you stop. And then that's a cycle that you keep repeating. You start something, you got motivation, you go ahead and go, oh yeah, you're cheering yourself. Yeah, I got to do this. I want to do this. I care, because this is something that you want to accomplish. I want to do this. I care. You start, you have all these plans, all these goals, and then you stop at some point before discipline has time to build itself. Motivation rises and falls, but discipline never quite takes its form. And that is something that Napoleon Hill warned about when the mind goes undisciplined. And over time, something else creeps in. And that is another silence killer, which is the voice inside your head. Whew, that one hit me like. The narrative we tell ourselves, our negative self-talk, shapes our identity, our thoughts, and our actions in ways that we do not even understand. And the Bible talks about this. Your mind starts narrating a version of you that doesn't necessarily exist, but your imagination goes there because your mind keeps repeating it to you over and over again. And you start believing what your mind's telling you. That voice in your head, what it's telling you, you start believing it, and then you start acting on it. It starts telling you who you are and who you aren't, what you should do, what you should attempt and shouldn't attempt, what you should stay away from and what you should get close to. See, unchecked self-talk isn't just about confidence. It shapes your identity. Napoleon Hill talks about this as mental conditioning. Miles Monroe framed this as unmanaged thoughts violating design. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. Different languages by different people, but the same outcome. And once identity is shaped by limitations, self-doubt starts sounding like wisdom. Worry starts feeling like foresight. Pessimism starts feeling like realism. And complaining starts feeling justified. And Jim Rohn warned about this. He said, complaining is surrender rehearsed out loud. Whew. Complaining is surrender rehearsed out loud. Let that sink in. The next time you want to complain about something, tell yourself, what I'm about to do right now is surrendering out loud to the thing that I should be master over. That's what Jim Rohn is saying. That's actually something I wrote on my wall. Anytime you complain, Gabrielle, you are surrendering out loud to the things you should be mastering. Because we're no longer choosing at that point. We're reacting. And then comfort, going back to comfort, right, starts wearing another mask. Stability. And what it looks like is us telling ourselves, well, this works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. This works. This is me. Why change it? This is consistent. That's just how I am. This is how I roll. But the thing is, staying the same in a world that is constantly changing is detrimental to our growth. It seems like it's neutral because you're just staying in the same position. You're deciding to just be yourself. But the thing is, even that is a decision. Because comfort without progress quickly becomes misalignment. So we got to ask ourselves, am I comfortable in this area of my life to the point that I'm not growing? If that's the case, there is misalignment. And often that decision to choose comfort without seeing progress is a result of our environments. Toxic environments and draining environments foster the choice for comfort. You start editing yourself. You start lowering your standards. You start making exceptions for things that you actually don't even like. You start avoiding friction. And Brian Tracy really emphasized that for me. He said something to the tune of, relationships are never neutral. They either reinforce who you are or they destroy it. They either reinforce your vision or they tax it. So basically, whoever you come in contact with, whoever you let in your inner circle, whoever you keep around you and that you entertain your life with has an impact on it. And that impact is going to be negative or positive. It's never neutral. And sooner rather than later, indifference replaces urgency. Indecision replaces clarity, and without clarity, movement simply becomes drift. We're moving, we're busy, but we're not productive. We're busy, but we're not aligned. We're active, but directionless. Efficient, but climbing the wrong ladder. And Miles Monroe put it in a way that really made sense to me. He emphasized the importance of being aware of misaligned priorities and broken focus. Because when your priorities are not aligned and your focus is broken, you stop learning. You stop growing. You stop wanting to become more than what you are. You feel like you've arrived when you haven't. Because once you stop learning, you start deprecating without you even realizing it. Once your focus is broken, and that's something I've noticed for myself. Once my focus was broken, I stopped desiring to learn. I got comfortable. I'm good where I'm at. What got me here is going to keep me here. That's what I would tell myself. But in reality, you stop stretching yourself. You stop upgrading. You stop building capacity. And then your capacity gets maxed out and you crash. We have crashed a couple times over here. And you tell yourself, what got me here will keep me here. It sounds confident. It sounds like you know what you're talking about. But in reality, when we stop learning, our relevance fades. We become irrelevant. So all of this to say, when you take a step back, here are the 12 patterns that kill our success, stall us, or impede our progress. First, we have unconscious decisions. That is letting delay, familiarity, comfort make choices for you. Second, we have procrastination disguised as preparation. And that is basically having intentions without execution. That's what it is. That's it. Third, we have fear-based thinking. That is overthinking, being overcautious, waiting to feel completely, absolutely ready to the T before you make a step forward. Then we have indecision and inconsistent actions. That's basically starting and stopping without achievement, starting and stopping without discipline and without accomplishments or achievements. And then we have unmanaged self-talk. That is that inner voice that quietly shapes identity and limitations. Then we have self-doubt, worry, pessimism, and complaining. And that, as Jim Rohn put it, that is simply us surrendering internally and rehearsing it out loud. I think I'm going to put that on the shirt. Then you got comfort disguised as stability. That is trying to stay the same in a changing world. And you got toxic relationships and draining environments. That's basically spaces that reward you for being small, for staying small and not changing. Spaces and people that reward you for being small and penalize you for wanting to change and be a different version and a better version of yourself. Then we have directionless living. That is motion without clarity, effort without alignment. Next, we have broken focus and misaligned priorities. In other words, having scattered attention that dilutes progress. And then finally, last but not least, is a refusal to learn or adapt. That's growth and capacity quietly stalling. So to sum it all up, success isn't something that we lose in one moment. It's something that we surrender quietly through thinking patterns that we do not question, thinking patterns that we find reasonable and justify. So this is where alignment begins, not by doing more, not by setting new goals, but by seeing clearly, by resetting our thinking and understanding what it is that's been stalling our growth, our progress, and our success. Once we know that, everything else, goals, habits, systems, and identity, build from there.